before chat, like when we first log into Books and Bars.
You missed that, Pete? You missed the before chat? That's one of the things I missed too, definitely. Yeah, it's
like when we show up there, we'd all like chitty chat with each other.
Right. Yeah. And I would kind of work the room.
Well, we ordered our drinks.
And float, yeah. And I would float into certain conversations. Lisa, are you okay? Are you sure you can be upright?
Well, I just got upright, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Don't stress yourself out. Congratulations. Congratulations on being halfway there with your vaccine. That's fantastic.
Thank you. I was fine for 5 hours, so I was kind of surprised when it kind of hit me.
Lisa, I have to wonder, because I know my parents aren't even old enough to get it faster. And it's last I heard, you don't work in healthcare. What did you do to get your vaccine?
Correct. But so correctional setting, because I get to go to the jail.
Okay, there you go. I've heard of that. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
If you're willing to work in the jail.
Fair enough. What if I've watched 5 seasons of Orange is the New Black? Is that good enough?
I think the requirements are if you're willing to go into a room about half the size of a bathroom.
I'm not.
With another person.
I'm not.
When they're actually in the toilet there too.
Wait, is this person giving you a vaccine, or is this person in prison?
No, this is my jail clients. I talk to them in little cells alone.
Okay.
Jail is much different than prison.
Lying, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you know what? She showed up at the vaccination site and said, "I want to see the manager," and they gave her a vaccine. Like,
yeah,
right.
and they're like, "Karen, excuse me, Karen, you're not 75 and you don't work in healthcare." And she's like, "But I want to talk to the manager now." And she's at like a CVS, and they're like, "Oh, just give her the vaccine." I love it. All right. Well, congratulations on getting that. For everybody else, I hope that you're vaccinated sometime soon and that we can return to normal Books and Bars once we're at that safe level. But for now, we continue on with our Zoom. So welcome to Books and Bars. My name is Jeff Kamen, and I will hopefully meet some new people tonight and see some old friends. I have put some instructions in the chat below on how we work this. If you've never done this with us before, it's pretty simple. Basically, wait till I unmute you. So we only have one person talking at a time, and then raise your hand. I will unmute you, and then ask a question, make a comment. Tonight's book is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. We have read some other Fredrik Backman books. Maybe you were with us when we did. I'm just wondering why I have Lisa stuck on the screen. I love her, and I love that she's holding up the book, but it's just odd that I'm talking. But is everyone else seeing Lisa? Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'll go back to gallery for a second.
Yeah, I'm not seeing Lisa.
You're not seeing Lisa. Okay, she wasn't leaving my screen, but now I can see so many of you. It's so beautiful. So Fredrik Backman, A Man Called Uwe, Beartown. Beartown just premiered on HBO Max. So if you have that streaming service, you could watch a Swedish series based on that book that we read a little bit ago. Haven't checked it out yet. Just came out this week, the first episode, but I hear good things. So Backman, what to say about him? It's interesting. He doesn't really have any formal writing training or education. He, I believe, was a truck driver. He worked other blue collar jobs, and he gave it a shot like later in life, tried to do this thing, and totally worked out. And now he's one of the most popular authors working today. I believe he's about 41 years old this year, married with kids, lives in Sweden. There's a bit more about him in the chat if you want to check that out, including some links to his social media. So seems like a guy that is like one of his characters, and seems like a guy with a lot of heart. And I think tonight we'll be talking maybe a bit about his characters and what they possess and what maybe makes them different from some of the other things we read. Pete is helping tonight as our co-host because he has not been vaccinated and he is not feeling faint, and he is not going to sit close to anyone in a prison or a jail, and he's ready to help again. So Pete, talk to us. What do you got?
All right, I'll try not to screw up this time. I'll keep an eye on the chat,
Pete's going to be keeping an eye on that chat. Yeah. So if you don't want to talk in person on the video, you can put it in the chat and we'll address things that are going on there. And Pete will chime in when there's something that the whole group should hear about. So great to see a bunch of you here. So welcome. I usually look for somebody to kick us off who maybe just finished the book, has a really fresh take on it. So is there anyone who maybe, just finished it before our discussion tonight, maybe today? Really just a little bit ago. Maybe you're not even done and you're just like, I'm going to talk now and then I'm going to earmuffs for the rest of us because I don't want it spoiled. Anyone want to kick us off? If not, I will ask some of the questions that I have for you and we'll see if that spurs anything. First of all, were you surprised? Were you surprised that it was a woman that was the bank robber? And if so, why? And were there clues? Were there hints? Did you think it was maybe someone else in the group? Any thoughts on that? Anyone want to start with their feelings on that? Raise your hand and we'll get to you. I'll tell you personally, my wife and I were listening to it. We do this joint, I see Donna's hand. We're going to get to Donna in a second. We, at one point, I think she even said out loud, oh, I think it's a woman, and I thought I was great. I'm like, yeah, I think it could be too. This is awesome. And she was right. So Donna, talk to us. May I unmute you?
All right. I'm glad you mentioned about, did you think the bank robber was a woman? Because I just finished the book and I haven't had a chance to go back and reread the parts where we first were introduced to the bank robber because I was curious to go back and get clues. But one of the general things I was going to say about the book is how, in a way, refreshing it was to realize my own biases in how, like, I thought the bank teller that turned down the request for a loan was a male and it turned out to be a woman. I thought the couple looking at the apartment where the married couple and the one was pregnant and I assumed it was a man and a woman. Oh, no, it was two women. Well, of course, that's just fine. I assumed that when Zara went to the psychiatrist or the psychologist, I thought, oh, she's talking to a woman or to a man. And then there was the pronoun she, and I thought, this is really cool. I thought, hey, there's a lot of just switching in our heads about and making us aware of those biases, in addition to some of the interesting whimsical things about the way the story was told. But that was one of my original first takeaways was good job on the gender bias awareness building.
Excellent. Thanks, Donna. Andrew and Lisa, I'm unmuting you.
I noticed, I didn't realize that the bank robber was a man until it kind of became obvious. However, I'm sorry, was a woman, was not a man until it became more obvious. But I remember thinking several times that this is a really strange dude as we were going through, because some of the ways that it was described that she reached that breaking point didn't seem very much like a story that a man would encounter. Like he was the one being left, and the children were being taken away from him, and these sorts of things. Like it didn't seem to fit. So it seemed unusual to me, or he seemed like an unusual bank robber. All the way until he became a woman, and then it kind of all clicked. And I wondered about that, if that was like a good thing or a bad thing. Was it good that I noticed there was something off there, or was it bad that I noticed something off there? I don't know, but it was definitely something that I noticed. I was really like, this is not like any bank robber guy I would know. That would be losing his kids and would behave in this way. But in any case, it made it made more sense when I found out it was a woman and a woman losing her children, that this kind of scenario would go down. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it made more sense to me when it got there. So whatever the biases were, I noticed it, and he played with me. So
excellent, thank you. Lisa, did you have anything, or are you holding your strength?
No, I'm holding my strength, but
Okay.
I did think it was a woman. I was trying to think, I don't know what triggered it. But at some point I tried to start figuring that out. And I think it probably was like Donna was saying, where I started noticing like some of the other characters that I was making some biases about. And it made me start questioning myself as I was going through it. So I loved that he had that trickery. I loved it.
Yeah, in some ways it felt a bit like a sociological experiment. Like you could imagine, just like getting the rough outline of this. Okay, these people go into a room and this person is this, like, it's like the doctor is working on the son. How can that be? That like old tale, that joke sort of thing of like that twist or whatever you call it. I see some hands, but I saw also in the chat that Todd is unable to raise his hand or has no hand. I hope he just means virtually, because as a doctor, I believe he does have hands. So Todd, if you want to be called on, I'm calling on you because you don't have a hand. Todd, can you hear me? Can I get you? I don't see your thing. Okay. Well,
I'm looking for Todd.
I see him in the list. I saw him in the chat. He said he didn't have a hand. Maybe he's trying something else. Todd, we'll come back to you. Allie, how are you? May I unmute you?
I fabulous. I am doing fabulous. I was very excited. I'm a huge Fredrik fan, and I finished.
What do you guys call yourselves? Are you Fredheads? Is
yes.
That the fan club?
Yeah, like Deadheads, but Fredheads. I love it.
Bachman Bros and the Fredheads. Awesome.
Yes, I'll keep riffing on that idea. And I finished this weekend, and it's really stuck with me. Two things stuck out to me. I think he does such an amazing job describing grief in all of the ways he talks about kind of the different people and their losses. Like when Jim's talking about his wife and he's talking about the grammar and the tense being the worst thing of all, she isn't on her way home. She was. I thought that was really powerful and had this way of distilling all of these intense emotions in just a really beautiful way that I think will stick with me for a long time. So just kind of, and then the way Estelle talked about her loves and losses. And when they talked about a night coming where it's Estelle's last night without Newt and everyone else's last night without Estelle, that like hit me so hard. I thought that was so beautifully written. And the other kind of theme that has stuck with me is kind of feeling stuck in a place, which I think we can all relate to. It's very 2020, and finding ways to connect with people, even when the situation isn't ideal, and just finding that joy in connecting as just human beings, and finding those points. So I thought it was very timely pick for him to have written this book and have it come out when it did. And I just thought it was really, really great to read.
Thanks. I agree. And Rachel and I actually read it a little while back, so a little earlier than I normally do for our picks. And I felt it was really good around New Year's. It was like a really good like turn of the new year kind of book. And I felt like there were things that were referenced in there with it being around that time of year. And it also hit me how timely it felt. And I was glad that it had a deeper connection than I thought it might initially have. I thought it was going to be more of like, okay, we're trapped in a room and it's going to be this, this joke or this game. And it had much more emotional impact and seriousness to it, which I really gravitated towards, and we both enjoyed it quite a bit. So I'm glad you did too. Fred heads. All right. Evelyn. May I unmute you?
Sure. There were a lot of people ahead of me, but okay.
On my screen, I saw you. So
okay, cool.
I'll come back to the others.
I just wanted to go off what people were thinking. I think it was really interesting to me when Andrew was talking about how he thought that it was odd that a man would right, like a man would be the one to be kicked out of the house and all of that. In fact, I thought I don't know what he said, but no, I do know what he said, but like I thought the opposite of him, like the description of the bank robber and what they went through and losing or having the spouse cheating on, turns out on her with the boss and all of that. The whole time that was happening, I thought, well, the bank robber must have been a man, and the father was the one that was the elk and all of that. So I thought it was really interesting that Andrew, just another person, saw the same story and thought the opposite gender. So that I think that's what Backman was going after, right? Like sort of analyzing what are your conceptions maybe for yourself, for the reader, which I think is interesting. I definitely noticed right away that there was like no gender assignation or assignment to the bank robber, and I thought I knew that was on purpose, but I wasn't really sure why they would do that. But turns out it was a woman. At some point in the book, I thought they resolved that it was a man, and then it switched. Did anyone else like think that like, oh, okay, then it's a man, and like then I don't know. And then the other thing I thought about was the whole hostage situation was very much of a bottle episode scenario, and it was very much not COVID friendly. Yeah, and so it was kind of wonderful to see people connecting, strangers connecting in the book, kind of like what Allie was saying. So.
Excellent. I don't remember a point at which they made you think it was definitely a man. It was a sign, but I think there were points at which the father-son police duo were certain it was like the realtor or someone else. There was a point where they were all ready to go ahead with that, and I think even the way it was written, it was like, and so it must be the realtor, like it was revealed, but then it was just a little bit of trickery. But a hint there also, since that was also a woman. So I see Karen. Oh, go ahead. Just
really quick, I just thought when they were interviewing London, which by the way, the voice for London in the audiobook was so good, like so good. It made me laugh the most. But when they were interviewing London, the bank teller, Jack asks her about like, please describe the bank robber. And she gets all like, upset about like profiling anyone in any way. She goes on this whole thing about height even, and I just thought that was very funny. It was a little like sort of a tongue-in-cheek of like, yeah, I just thought it was it was kind of a funny commentary.
This book was also read by Marin Ireland, who read Nothing to See Here. Another one of ours, and I think she's getting a lot of audiobook work. She's really good. She also is a reader of another one of our upcoming ones too. It's getting kind of funny how many of the books that I queue up the audio of and it's read by her. It's like, you're gonna read me all the books and bars books. This is great. And she's one of my favorites, so I think it's working out quite nicely. But I'm glad you appreciated her voices also. Kara, you have your hand up. Talk to us. I'm unmuting you.
I thought it was funny, Evelyn, you brought up London, because that's when I first kind of like was questioning the gender. And I did kind of go back and forth. I kind of was like, oh, well, it seems like they've settled on the bank robber being a guy, so that's fine. But like when London was having this thing about like, oh, you assume like tall or short and stuff like that, and the fact that there wasn't an exchange about London giving them a hard time about gender, I thought that like London gave them a hard time about everything except the fact that the cops assumed it was a man. And so I thought that was odd. So that's kind of the first question I had, but then so many other people kind of were making the assumption of maleness for the bank robber. And I don't know, I didn't really attribute any of the bank robbers' behavior to like more masculine or feminine. Like it takes place in Sweden, and I don't know if like they have the same stereotypes of masculinity that we do in the United States, or what they're when people are separated, like the odds of children going to one parent or the other, like if they have any similarities with the US. So that was just a thing that I wasn't even like thinking about. So I went back and forth a bunch. I did think the realtor like was, I don't know what I want to say. Like I was like, they're trying to get us to think it's the realtor, like from early on, because the realtor like was the second interviewee after London, but the first hostage interviewee. And then the realtor was just nowhere to be seen in anything that was happening. So right away I was like, where's the annoying realtor who like says they're like, cutesy phrase all of the time? The realtor's not there, but the bank robber is definitely not the realtor. House tricks. Yeah. Thanks, Pete. So I don't know. I was like, what's going on with the realtor? There's something there, but I definitely didn't like think that the bank robber was the realtor from the beginning. And I thought that's like what they were trying to make us think. So at least that was one of the things that they were playing around with.
Yeah. Thanks, Kara. I see Gretchen has her hand up. Gretchen, may I unmute you?
Certainly. Hello.
Hi.
So I just assumed from almost the beginning that the bank robber was female. And I can't remember if it was the realtor's interview or is it Zara? Names just escape me. But anyway, one of them said, what makes you think it's a man? And I just thought, well, then it's got to be a woman, because, why would you say that otherwise? So that was my little very early on tip that whatever gender roles we thought should be happening with bank robbers or not, that clearly that was all getting turned on its head.
Yeah. Any thoughts on, did you have other like guesses as to who it might be as you were reading it?
Not really. I mean, I was just kind of reading it to enjoy it. So I don't know. I was usually.
Did it work? Well, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. I think I just enjoyed so much just the, kind of seeing all of the anxieties of all of these characters and how they were interrelating with one another. I thought that was really fascinating. And maybe I was just driven in that direction to think about those things because of the title.
Yeah.
But that was really kind of my focus, was on, just these personalities and the what kinds of things these people were obsessing about. And that was more interesting to me than the big reveal.
Right. Excellent. Sandra Batts, may I unmute you?
Hi.
Hi.
I guess I just wanted to say I didn't really think too much about the bank robber, male, female, but I just like the characters in general because they start out so rough edged and, you don't like any of them to start with for any particular reason. And then as the chapters continue, they all kind of become somebody that you want to be a friend with, or you want to know more about their story, and they kind of soften up and, kind of tug at your heart, and you're cheering for everybody at the end. So there's like not one particular character that you like more than the other. They just all seem to be such good people. And I think it's remarkable how he can switch the narrative of each individual in just, a few words to make them such a different person than when they first started out, or your perception of them. And I think he does such a great job of doing that. He was interviewed when the book first came out, and he seemed to be such a quiet guy. He just didn't want to talk too much. And the person that was moderating it, she wasn't a very good one. She just kind of wanted to spoil the book before anybody would have had a chance to read it. And he was very gracious because there's the time zone and he was still talking, but he didn't want them to dwell on the bank robber because he wanted to express the rest of the book and the characters and things. But I just think he does a great job with all his characters' development, and how he turns a story into such a meaningful thing for everybody, kind of a take home. So
Yeah. I'm interested if anyone had certain characters that they related to more or gravitated towards more or thought that Backman did a better job of writing. Did you have, characters that stood out to you? Like which storylines were you most interested in or most happy about? Did you have any, Sandra, in particular? Or?
the rabbit head guy just kind of bothered me the most, but that's because that was a picture thing in my head.
Yeah.
But no, I really was cheering for the cop's son. I can't remember the names because it was a while ago. Just because I just wanted him to do well. He just seemed to have a tough go of everything, and his story kind of intersects with everybody throughout the book, as you find out towards the end. So I think I kind of liked him.
Jack and Jim. Sometimes I forget which is which. Was the dad Jack and
I
the
think
son
Jack
Jim?
is the son.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think so too. We'll find out. And it's Jack and Jim went up a hill.
Yeah.
both became police. It's great. Via, your hand's been up. May I unmute you?
Yes. Hi, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Greetings from New York.
Welcome back.
I enjoyed this book very much. Whether I thought it was male or female, I didn't really focus on it too much. I did pick up all the hints along the way. I started thinking later in the book that it was the realtor because they were all plotting on having the bank robber disguised as the realtor at one point. But on the broader theme, I like the way this author challenges your assumptions. So that was one of the assumptions, male, female on the bank robber. But there were other ones, related to roles. For example, the couple of Annalena and Roger, toward the beginning of learning about those characters, I don't know, I was kind of assuming that she might have been a stay-at-home mom and he was, out at work. And then the roles started being described differently, that she was the high power professional in the career, pursuing her career in the relationship, and the father had put his career on the back seat, and she really wanted to try and make him feel worthy in their retirement. And I thought that was just a really, really nicely done couple, and also a challenge to our assumptions, which this author is doing throughout. So I really liked that about this book. There are a number of really great themes that I related to. I mean, the overarching theme was this Stockholm Syndrome, where, not only on the literal level, we have all of the hostages becoming great friends and identifying with the bank robber who's holding them captive. But in the broader sense, the theme of the book really is how we are all held hostage by our anxieties, our fears, our mistakes. We're all idiots at some point in life. We all make idiotic mistakes. And even the bank robber says at one point during the hostage drama, the bank robber herself says something to the effect of, I realize, they aren't the hostages, I'm the hostage, because we become captives of our own anxieties and fears and mistakes and begin to identify with them. And, I'm a bad parent, I made mistakes in parenting, or whatever it might be. And I love the uplifting result in this book where everybody comes together and all of the loose ends are resolved. And the author also gives us a pass on our shortcomings and our mistakes in life and our fears and anxieties, and says, basically, by the end of the book, just give yourself a break. We can't define ourselves by our mistakes. We have to go forward and forgive ourselves. And all of the characters pretty much do that. So I just thought this book was very uplifting. I love the humor. I have to say, one very small down point. I don't know if other people felt this way. In general, I loved all the humor throughout it. It was just sprinkled everywhere, and a lot of the insights about parenting. I just thought it was great. You know, how the kids just revere you and think you know everything when really you know nothing, that kind of stuff, which is really great. But I didn't really enjoy too much the Q&A sessions with the Jack and Jim when they were questioning the witnesses. I felt that it was probably meant to be humorous. Somehow the humor it just didn't strike me as very funny. It felt almost kind of hostile because they were challenging the questions. Why are you asking this question? You know, and they were not cooperating, which we find out later. The reason being, of course, that they were very evasive because they were basically siding with the bank robber. The bank robber was now their friend. They didn't want to give anything away about the bank robber, but those scenes did not strike me as just very funny. But the rest of the book, just the humor throughout and the quirkiness, the very strange imagery. For example, someone knocks on the door and it was like puppies and whatever fireworks were going to come. There were just so many funny little images that were just great. So really enjoyed it. Yeah. Oh, one final thing for you asked favorite character. I think Estelle was my favorite character. I loved her. And I pretty much, I started guessing that husband was not parking the car, you know, but she was wonderful.
Yeah.
So
I love that she ends up with a nice, fun roommate. You know, it's how that
yes.
comes together. Via, I'm interested with how you feel about Backman's writing. Is this the first Fredrik Backman that you've read?
It is the first one I've read.
Okay.
And I'm so glad that you put it on the list and that I gave it a go. I'm definitely going to go back and read another one. I understand. I feel like some of his others are more favored than this one. I don't know what other people think of that, but I know that I've been hearing about it for a while, and some other people who've read many of his books didn't like this one as much as others. So I'm now intrigued to go on and read other ones. Definitely.
Great. Well, I think you'll enjoy. I think A Man Called Uva is probably his biggest one and maybe his most acclaimed and the one he's most known for. And Beartown is maybe getting up there now. But yeah, I mean, I've heard good things about this one too. I saw someone in the chat said that they liked Beartown, but when they came to Books and Bars, a lot of other people didn't like it. I'm wondering if that was either the St. Paul one or the Minneapolis one, because in my head, I thought people pretty much liked it. But I don't know. You probably remember better than I do. So, well, thanks, Via. I see Sue has her hand up. Sue, may I unmute you?
There we go.
Hey, Sue.
Count me in as another 5. I love this one. I'm a Fredhead. And I loved I think someone mentioned the assumptions we make. It seemed like every character there was an assumption that gets taken away by the end of the book. And I loved Anna, was it Annalena and her husband, and how at first you thought that, you know, she was the little submissive housewife, and then come to find out that she was the professional who had, you know, had a great career. So that one, and then also Estelle actually being the owner of the apartment, that coming out at the end, that was great. And I think he's done this in other books where it's like you're peeling away an onion and there's layers and layers to wrapping up loose ends. And because I know I've read a lot of books where there's a missing end and it just drives me nuts. And he does a nice job of kind of tying everything up. So,
Yeah.
and nobody has answered your icebreaker questions.
Sue, well, you be the first, Sue. What do you think? Maybe we should restate them. Maybe people haven't seen them in the chat. What did I ask? I asked, well, first of all, I mean, have you ever befriended a criminal?
I was married to one.
Well, excellent. I mean, if you want to tell the story, you know, feel free.
No, I was
have you
married
ever?
to one.
Okay. So, well, there you go. What else did I ask? Have you ever robbed a bank? No. Well, then what would you give
But
it
I
on
know a bank
Goodreads?
robber. But I
You
do
know a
know a
bank
bank
robber.
robber.
Was
Yeah,
it?
not,
Is it
not
your?
my husband? No,
Okay. All right.
another. So I
Um,
know two criminals.
Excellent. Well, there you go, Sue. Yeah, I mean,
There you
come on,
go.
you guys. Sue was able to answer it. You know, if you can't answer that, you can at least tell us what you give it on Goodreads. But I see Donna has her hand back up. Maybe she wants to tell us about all of her special
All the
criminal
criminals
friends.
I've known and loved, sorry, but no. One other comment I'll make is that when I was reading it, I was reminded of another novel in which there's hostages that are kind of transformed by the experience or come out different people in a way, and that's Bel Canto. Bel Canto is a totally different novel, of course, a much more serious situation, much different ending, for those of you who haven't read it. But I think that idea of putting people together in a confined space that come from a whole variety of different backgrounds, and they are kind of forced to get to know each other just because they're stuck there. And then because of that experience of that interaction, in Bel Canto, they're very much changed. I mean, many of them have a whole different appreciation for, you know, whether it's the guerrilla fighters or the opera singer or whatever. I can't remember all the characters there. But here too, there's that conversation or that paragraph toward the end about anxious people. And it seemed that each of these people went out of that apartment a little less anxious about the kinds of things that had been bothering them and making them not so confident, whether it was in their marriage or their prospects in life or whatever it was. They were changed by that. And I think that I kind of like books that have some kind of a transformative experience for the characters. And I had a little trouble with the timeline in this book. I couldn't imagine how they could actually get the pizza ordered and delivered, have all those conversations, go buy fireworks and set them off. I mean, there were some problems there, but where meanwhile the police were supposedly going to arrive any minute, you know. So, I mean, there really was a lot going on in that apartment that didn't seem to have the proper time element, but otherwise I thought, yeah, the fact that they all were able to talk through with some people they would never have otherwise probably talked to in real life, but in those interactions, learned some things about themselves that were reassuring and gave them kind of a new perspective.
Excellent. Well, I do think that you can get a pizza usually in less than an hour. So that part was fine. Now, remember, it was that the police were there also with the pizza part, and it was going to be, you know, like they were. So I don't know what the exact sort of timeline was, but it went on for a few hours. It's funny that you mentioned Bel Canto because that's Ann Patchett, and that's like maybe like the first like really big Ann Patchett that everyone knows and loves. And I hadn't read her until we read Dutch House, and then everyone just couldn't believe, oh, you got to read Bel Canto. So I've had that on the list for a while to go back to, but now I'll have to wait. Can't do it too close to this one, obviously, if I didn't know it was similar in that sense. I knew it was like a one-day sort of event occurrence, but anyway, I'll read Bel Canto eventually. Yeah, so I do think that he does a really good job, Backman does, of really letting these characters grow, and they've changed. You know, they have something that they need to work on. Each of them has like at least one major want or need or issue that needs to be resolved. And you do feel like, even though it's a small amount of time, like in this one day, this one night that they're together, you get the sense with the ending. The ending is very satisfying, and it doesn't leave you hanging. It does maybe tie everything up, but in a way that, you know, his books are always, I think you always leave with a smile on your face. You know, even if there's sad parts, they're just like, they're feel good books, and they're uplifting in that sense. So I hope I get counted for that, for picking one, especially in February. That as dark as Books and Bars gets, just remember there was a Fredrik Backman in there. that uplifted everybody. So I see Kara's hand is up. Kara, I'm unmuting you. Talk to us.
I feel like you're speaking to me, Jeff, because I always complain when you pick a dark book. And it's so funny that I'm on like the lower end of people who enjoyed this one. Like I liked it, but I would have like, after I read it, I was like, that was fine. Like it was nice, but I just didn't feel like a strong connection to any of it. And I did like one of the things I was talking about to my friend earlier was like, I was like, I did like that it all wrapped up and it was happy, but like it wrapped up so many different things. And like, it was like, everyone is actually a good person. Like I was fine with Zara being a bad person, but no, Zara was actually secretly like, you know, a Republican with a heart of gold or whatever. Like, so I just thought that was funny. So I'm like, Jeff, you can't go too happy. You can't go too sad. You need to find something just right, apparently.
Well, you know, in Sweden, people actually are better. Actually, everyone is good in Sweden at heart. So yeah, if they make the American version, they'll have a little more.
The one person that I think like was just the villain of the piece, who even Fredrik Backman couldn't redeem, was the husband of the bank robber. Like they didn't go into how he secretly wasn't like the massive douchebag. They had to like make everyone else like kind of give them like a reason to be good. But yeah, I don't know. It was nice. It was a fine book, but I was just kind of like, you could cut maybe 10 pages off the beginning and 10 pages off the end, and I would have liked it more.
You know, I think by not making the robber's husband redeemed or making him good, I mean, that helps with you have to believe that this woman was pushed to this level, that, you know, to just decide to rob a bank for this exact amount of money. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of stupid. You know, it's not what a rational person would do in this situation, but the guy, you know, drove her to this situation. She didn't think there was anything else she could do. And so, yeah, redeeming him maybe would have made us question some of her ultimate motives, because we have to get on board with and love this robber. Otherwise it doesn't work. You know, we have to think, you know what, we have to, and also believe that all of these other characters would rally around this person and be like, you know, you're just having you made a bad decision. You're not this person. So we're going to help you out. That sort of a thing.
I do think, just one more thing. I do think they just went a little too far with that by making it like she ended up like homeless because she didn't want to like ever fight with her husband because of how it made her daughter feel. Like she's so self-sacrificing to the point that it ends like ends her like up in that situation. I was already sympathetic to her, that by the time we got to that point, I was like, just that little extra thing. I didn't need it. But you could like rob a bank now and I wouldn't even need to know the reason and I'd probably be on your side. So I'm so anti, you know, bank, and I don't need a sob story.
That's why. So Pete, are we seeing more people in the chat that have admitted to robbing a bank or being friends with robbers? Pete, anything?
I'm fine with that. We can still be friends.
Now is the year, right? I mean,
my wife teases me about this, but I followed a bank robber story that I knew from my alma mater, Lehigh University. Some undergraduate in the aughts gotten to online gambling problems and went to prison, and I followed it. So, but Carolyn keeps teasing me about.
You mean you were just interested in the story? You were following. When you say you followed him into a life of crime, Pete?
Yes. I saw the flaws in his plan, and so I jumped and decided to rob banks effectively.
I'm reminded of the bookstore robbery in the movie Bottle Rocket, Wes Anderson's first film. Dignant Owen Wilson puts a piece of tape on his nose, and they're breaking into the have you seen Bottle Rocket? Great movie. They're breaking into the bookstore to rob it, and he's like, "Why do you have tape on your nose?" He's like, "Exactly," and he like pushes them in like it's like a distraction. You just put a piece of tape. That's it. Like not a mask or anything like that, but it's just like it made you look at that and wonder about why does he have tape on his nose. They're not really criminals, but everyone has to have a dream. That was the tagline for that. I see Lisa's hand is up. Lisa, before you pass out, let's hear from you.
actually me, unfortunately. Sorry. to
That's all
disappoint.
right. That's okay.
So I actually think that this author is really good for book clubs for a lot of reasons. I actually am not a huge fan of him. Like I don't like the style. I actually find the style a little bit grating. I really appreciated the comment that was made about the interview things. I just found that was like the most direct kind of his style, where it's kind of these dismissive little things on society and stuff. I mean, it really was hard for me to get through those. However, other people love his style. Clearly, they think that it's probably just a preference thing of whether or not you like a certain way of storytelling or not. But he's so perceptive, and he tells relationships really well. And all of in the other three books that the other two books that we've read, very similar in that the relationships between people he's able to really convey. I really enjoyed the Jack-Jim relationship throughout the story, and the fact that there's this pain that they're sharing. The death of the wife mother, and the loss of the sister. And you could just really feel how sad and kind of hopeless these two. They're just kind of leaning on each other as they're walking down the alley or something like that. They're just kind of lost and depending on one another, just kind of to keep each other from falling over. I just thought that was really well done as far as the characters are concerned. And he does tell a particularly good kind of, wrapping it up, very insightful type of story that's very satisfying. So you kind of know what you're going to get. I think that there's just a lot there. But the last thing I'll say is that he's also got a lot of insightful stuff. So this was an anti-capitalist kind of book. I mean, a lot of the undertones were about how society kind of grinds us down. I thought the whole metaphor of everybody fighting over this apartment, in this, for all these kind of strange reasons that were inane. And the owner of the apartment is there posing as a buyer because she's lonely and would like to know who's going to be there. I mean, I just thought that is so here's this crime that occurs, and in runs this kind of haphazard, awful bank robber, honestly, as far as being a bank robber, not an awful person, but awful at being a bank robber. And it's kind of this kind of fixes the situation. This normal situation is what's crushing people, destroying the relationship between the two women that are going to have the baby because they can't agree on anything. It's destroying the relationship between the older couple that's doing the flipping the houses stuff. Zara's just there to basically soothe her guilt and find something to do to get it up. Anyway, it's this criminal element that suddenly snaps all of these people out and like crosses all of these boundaries. I don't know if that's a real thing in the real world, but I think that's definitely something that the author was trying to get at. I thought it was subtle and pretty thought-provoking, actually. So it's well done.
So maybe your thoughts on Fredrik Backman are improving, and maybe he's getting at something. And I mean, it would be interesting to see him write something a little darker. I think A Man Called Uva does start pretty dark, but that's in the classic line of sort of a Dickens character who starts off one way and then changes his life, sort of thing. I definitely get the anti-capitalist sentiment, and I don't think Bachman thinks there's any problem with this person robbing this bank, and he obviously doesn't think this person should be punished for attempting that crime either. So I do think he's
trying
good.
to rob a cashless bank of its cash.
Yeah, that wasn't the smartest thing.
Well, it wasn't even a thing. She didn't hurt anybody.
It's hard to rob a bank these days. I'm still looking for someone to help in the chat, but we haven't found out yet, have we, Pete?
Oh, I've been writing things down. I got a lot of stuff here.
Okay, tell us what you got, Pete.
All right, so way up in the chat, did anyone find amusing in the Stockholmers? Like everyone from Stockholm was just shit.
Yeah, he really hates the
That-
Stockholm people.
yeah, that
The funny
cracked
thing
me up.
there is that, I mean, they get like a Stockholm syndrome, but they're all anti, oh, you don't want to be like the people from Stockholm.
And I like how they brought that in. They were talking about that they were suffering from Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
And I forget what page that was. And there's a lot of good stuff. Like I don't know if we've gotten too far in the love and loss stuff. It would make a great play? I think so. I think this could be converted into an excellent funny drama. And a lot of people have talked about, I agree. I've read Uva, I haven't read the others. There's a wide consensus that this is not his best, but it's still good.
Okay.
And thanks for the bel canto. And then there's a side one on if Zara's on the spectrum, which I love it because I do know people like that are they have difficult time with interact with the rest of humans, but they can be very successful in business as a result of their natural isolation. Good discussion topics. And I want to throw one thing real quick in case we don't get another chance. Kara, the next book is just so awful. I hope you read it. I want, and the rest of you, you're so good at slamming something that's, all the this is like cis hetero porn. It's just, I can't wait to see the rest of you slash and burn it. But that's
Thank you, co-host. It's for basically telling everyone the next book is so awful. But you're saying it's so bad it's good. It's so bad that you gotta read it and come talk. And I did say this. I said I laughed a lot. I don't know if I was supposed to laugh. So, and this does feel like one of our January romps, just a little bit later to me. It's crazy. I posted about it in the chat. If you don't know what it's about, the chain, I think just like the one sentence explanation of it, like you're in and you can get why this would be bought. And like you want to watch this movie, or at least you want to read this. It's entertaining. I don't know if it's good or bad yet, but I know that I was thoroughly entertained and I laughed a lot. And I think it's a great idea. The idea of, someone kidnaps your kid, and then to get the kid back, you have to kidnap someone else's kid. And it's like a chain letter that keeps going. This plays into, I really do think he's commenting. We'll talk about this on March 10th, but give it a chance, because I do think he's making some social commentary here that's worth discussing, and it is funny. But it's also like, as a parent, it would be like the worst thing in the world. I mean, to imagine, like the premise is just, you can't believe it. But once you start reading, you're like, okay, like I'm on board. This is interesting. I could play this game. I mean, I wouldn't kidnap any of your kids, but
I'm in for the
mine.
snark, though. I really hope everyone here suffers through and reads it like I have. And then,
I think it's fun that we're going from the bank robber that you can relate to now the kidnapper. And then there's some, like blackmail and extortion and all that good stuff. So yeah, you'll be entertained. And you'll read it quickly, and then come back for the spite that Pete thinks that we're going to hear for it. But don't be afraid to say if you liked it either. So, all right, Via, your hand's up. Via, I'm unmuting you. Talk to us.
Yes, just a couple of quick things that just came to mind on two things that people were saying. First, on the anti-capitalism thing, I thought that this author just does so great with irony, and there was a line a couple of times that just really hit home that, Zara was saying, why should a bank ever lend money to somebody who needs money? They only lend money to people who already have money because you can't pay it back if you don't have any money. So that's just, that irony is just really hits. And then the other thing, you were asking people if anyone here knows a bank robber, is a bank robber, knows a criminal, et cetera, et cetera. This author also does really well, I think, with showing that everybody has the good and bad in them, the good urges, the bad urges. And one of my favorite sections in this book was a whole part where he says something like, we're all good people, so we don't lie, steal, or murder, do we? And then he goes through this whole 2-paragraph thing of all the little ways we lie. Of course, maybe you'll lie if your kids come in the room and says, why does it smell like chocolate in here? Or something like that. And you've just been eating chocolate that you were hiding from them. And then he goes through the whole thing with stealing, and then goes through the whole thing with murdering. So that just came to mind as a favorite passage in the book. That's it.
Yeah, I liked that section also, that really made you look at yourself then and be like, because you're reading it up to a point and thinking like, I wouldn't go that far. Like you don't go rob a bank. Like that was just a crazy, stupid thing to do. And then it turns around and it's like, well, but do you do this? Do you do this? Okay, you say you would never do these things, but how far are you? You're no better than any of these characters. Anyone else have any other sections or passages that stood out to them, or characters that they want us to address? Maybe I put a bunch of questions in the chat to consider. Any that spark anything for anybody? Evelyn.
I just thought I'd share my favorite part of the book too, since Via shared hers. I thought the part that really hit me the most and to me was really insightful was the part where the bank robber talks about her children lying for their parents or about their lives, and it not being like too made up, tell just enough believable lie, and children being smart to do that. That was really good. Like, I can't believe he thought, like, he remembered that, or like was able to sort of express that so well, because it's very, very, very true. And I'd never seen that written or expressed anywhere. So that was, I thought that was my favorite part. I think that was the most insightful part for me.
Excellent. That's fantastic when you see something that you haven't expressed, before in quite that way. To be the first thing to do that, that's great. Because so often, I think we read things that, all right, yeah, it was good, or it was like something else I've read before, but to truly have something like, oh, I've never, actually read something quite that way. That's great. Does anyone else have anything on that level for them, or anything? What haven't we touched on yet for this book? I see Carolyn. Unmute you. Hi. I'm trying to.
There you go.
There you go.
Are we good? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just like I really loved his insights. I mean, he just had okay, a couple things. One thing, it was hard for me to get into it because I thought the police interviews were so distracting. I'm like, why were these people being insouciant? And, and I couldn't get into it. But then once the book started to gel, it really became lovely. And I was crying at the end, and, it's like, this is really sad, but what I really liked was his insights. And I remember this was even like on page 30, but it's Jim and Jack, and talking about parenting. And the thought was, Jim thinks, the dad, that's an impossible thing for sons to grasp, and a source of shame for fathers to have to admit, that we don't want our children to pursue their own dreams or walk in our footsteps. We want to walk in their footsteps while they pursue our dreams. He's just so amazing when he comes up with things that just spark truth like that. I'm a Fredhead.
That's an excellent passage. Yeah, I remember that, and that stood out to me too. Yes, you said that was page 30.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right away. Beginning.
So good.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I see a fellow Fredhead. back with us? I'm unmuting you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, passages that stuck with me so much that I wrote them down, like in my journal. And I thought the end was so just like what I needed to hear. I just felt like that connection of like, I miss that so much, of just like happening to running into someone by chance. And I thought it was so reassuring after all of this anxiety and all of this like talk of all of these huge themes. Like, you made it through the day. There's gonna be another one. It's just I loved that, and it was a little cheesy. And maybe if we weren't in a pandemic for a year, I wouldn't have latched onto that so much emotionally. But I just felt like it was a really neat way to end. And the way he talks directly to you as the reader, I think is an interesting thing that I haven't really seen.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else on any of the questions I posed in the chat, or something else that we haven't discussed about this one yet, or other
have
questions? Yes, Pete.
Has anyone, either themselves, eaten a lime hole or witnessed someone else eating a lime hole?
Allie's laughing pretty hard. Anyone? That reminded me of like a Seinfeld, where it's like, who eats that like a hand fruit? Who just eats the tomato like a hand fruit? Like, it's not something you do. It was weird. Yeah, it was like you have a bowl of limes out that you're just gonna pick it up and just start eating a lime. I don't know.
I was strongly attracted to Ro at that point.
Is that a Swedish thing?
Yeah, no, there's like, it better not kill her.
I'd be interested also if there's any realtors in the group right now want to speak to, because as much as I don't think this is a very good realtor. Let's be honest. I don't know. And some of the tricks, the tricks to
house tricks.
House tricks. All right, Donna's hand is up. I think Donna's eating a lime hole. Here she is.
No, I haven't, but I'm glad you mentioned the part about the limes, because I was trying to find, I wish I'd written them down, but thank you. Was it Carolyn or whoever commented about the language and how these little pithy things were thrown in, and sometimes they were really thoughtful and insightful, like about marriage or parenthood and so on. Other times they were just kind of whimsical things that were kind of silly, like the part about the, so I was trying to find a place to where there was one. I didn't write them down, but the part about the limes, where there's even a funny part where he says that, we've got limes. Ro called out, pointing at the bowl on the coffee table, full of at least a couple dozen. Well, okay, first of all, how can you get a couple dozen? Well, limes seem to be such a popular adornment at apartment viewings that it's tempting to think that if real estate agents were banned, the surface of the earth would become covered with such a thick layer of limes that only young people with very small knives and an inexplicable fondness for Mexican beer would survive. I mean, that's just one example of these little kind of humorous, kind of perceptive and amusing little digressions he throws in. And I was trying to find a part where he talks about, she smiled like a person would who, whatever. Or, there was all of those. I thought the language and the similes were pretty inventive and fresh. I hadn't read a book that had people's expressions and voices and reactions described in quite those words. And either it's a really good translator, because that's another problem I always have, or question I have, is how much is in the translation and how much is in the original. But I got a kick out of that a lot. I thought there were some very humorous things and insightful things.
Yeah, the translator that's a good question. Usually what you'll see is, like I was just saying the other day to my wife, I love Murakami, and I've read, we've read him a few times for Books and Bars, but I've never read Murakami in his own language. I've only ever read the translated version of that. So how much of that is, and what you'll see is an author will usually stick with the same translator, whether that's the publisher that's like, we got this person, you gotta, this is your English translator, that sort of a thing. And I think, they get to know each other and there's a connection there. And they might end up becoming better at it after a time. Maybe and there might be certain things that are like, the translator is used to now this author's style and can do it, maybe in a more succinct way or something. I'm not sure, but yes, credit should go to the translator also, if you do enjoy the translation. But sometimes there's maybe something that's lost in it. Like I have to laugh because I've been to a ton of open houses. I've never seen a bowl of limes at an open house. Maybe there's been lemons at an open house, but not limes. I don't think so. Usually there's like apples or something, there's like cookies that were just made or whatever. But but the idea of limes, I saw that Todd said in the chat
with
that
Evelyn.
it was the visual of anxiety. What, Evelyn's got something about limes? About this, I see Andrea and Lisa's hand is back up, but Todd said in the chat that he also has a tree of limes in his backyard. That's California for you, sure. Yeah, no, I remember people had awesome things growing in their backyards there, but I don't know. Sweden are limes? Do they grow well? I don't think so. I don't get it. But it must be something. I don't think he made it up, unless there was somehow that was a funny bad translation. But I think they would have caught that. I don't know. Andrew and Lisa, let's see what they have on this.
So
Limegate.
I thought the lime thing was fabulous. I thought it was kind of a riff on the person that was eating the lime being pregnant, which was, I think it was the person that was pregnant, right?
No,
like it's just a weird craving.
Her wife was pregnant.
Okay, so that
on this together,
it was one of the two. In any case,
Sorry, whatever.
Whenever I've been really anxious, or really inside my own head, I'll often find myself like, where did I get this piece of celery, and why am I eating it? That sort of thing. I mean, and when you talk about grazing at a party or something like that, if you're kind of socially awkward and you don't really like it, I mean, you end up eating all of the stuff that you otherwise would not eat. I thought it was just fabulous that this person is clearly, outside of their head, and it's just like, okay, well, here's a lime, and I'm going to eat that thing. It was. I thought it was fabulous. Really well done.
Excellent. I like the idea that next time I see you, Andrew, if you're just chomping on celery, I'll know. Where did I get this? This is not my celery. I mean, that's just weird. I mean, if you're getting like street celery or something, I don't know what's going on there. Hey, I see Todd. Todd, now that I can see you, do you want to have a question or comment? Can you chat with us? You're on my screen.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I didn't see you.
Wow, how about that? Yeah, no, I thought the whole thing was just a lesson in anxiety, and challenging each of the way of us being what we say we don't want to be. So we don't want to think a certain way about a bank robber, or we don't want to think a certain way about a Zara, or we don't want to think a certain way about the person who jumped off the bridge. But I think he challenged us to say, okay, sit with it a while, and if you can be neutral, you win. If you can't be neutral about it and you're going to make a judgment, whether it be the lime or anything else, you're just one of them. And that's the anxiety. And I walked away at the end thinking two things. I mean, if you kind of think of it as more maybe metaphysically, that it wasn't 8 people, it was one that had multi dimensions of themselves that were being exercised out in this play of, because I think whoever said it would be a good play, I agree with them. I think it would be a great play. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 5. But then I'm in part a psychotherapist too, so it's like, yay, here it is. That's how it works. And I think everybody at the end didn't walk away better. They walked away carrying and knowing how to carry better their bruises. Because you even saw at the end the bank robber gal at the side of the cops going into a whole new circular of anxiety. Not in front of my kids. Don't do this. And Jack, all it was is I had to see her to validate this and to validate Dad and to attach with him. So just lots of very interesting things. I thought it was very good.
Thanks, Todd. Excellent comments and points. Glad that you could get back in on the chat here. So good to see you again. Thanks. Anyone else? What's something that we haven't touched on? You read it. There's something maybe you wanted to talk about tonight. Don't be afraid to bring it up. Otherwise, anyone else have any thoughts on Estelle and, calling it an affair? And I asked, what book would you give someone that you had a crush on? I think this would be a great group to ask. What's the kind of book that you would give? Anyone have any thoughts on that? If you had a crush on someone, maybe some of you do right now. Maybe there's someone in this group that has a crush on someone else in this group and wants to give that book to them right now. They can do that. Just raise your hand. All right, no pressure. I'm just kidding.
Well, personally, I mean, I crush on the whole group in general because I've kind of
Pete,
loved
there it
this.
is. There it is. That's the Backman quote of the night. I got a crush on the whole group. I love it, Pete. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, but I'd like to kind of bring this up if we're kind of talking about this. Like, I think Kara's stuff about cis-normal people has just really struck a giant chord with me. And it's like, I need to read about people that are not me, because, that's the stuff of, where the Steven Pinker type stuff is like, empathy comes from learning about and liking people that aren't you. And that goes, same with everyone here has it's an unusual group of really cool stories and back stuff. And I'm really fond of everyone. I don't mean to pick on Kara, but I'm not picking on her. She's just.
I think you're putting her up on a pedestal. You're not picking on her.
Yeah. So
you're giving her some props. That's
so
good.
I'm fanboying her book clubness is what it is.
Is she still in the room?
Yeah, she's around.
Okay.
But I'll leave it at that and then let everyone else jump in.
She should put a blushing emoji up on her thing. Yeah, no, she recommended a book to me that I just read, Plain Bad Heroines, and maybe we'll be seeing it later this year. So I'll probably talk to her offline about it before I make any decisions. But yeah, it's great. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I try, and that's why I keep asking for more suggestions from others. But I try to balance it out and to read different people's perspectives. And I know there's a lot of work to be done. I'm still, my go-to, my lazy is to go to, the white Swedish guy, but I'm going to keep working at it. I'll keep working at it too. I'll keep trying to read new stuff. I'm still just reeling from already how you're all going to gang up on me about the chain. I'm still hurt from the hotel in New Hampshire. I don't know if I can take it, guys. So let's just laugh together. Okay. It's the romp that you missed out on in January, March 10th. Don't forget it. All right, Donna's hand's back up. Donna, talk to us.
Well, I was just going to suggest, Jeff, that you rephrase your question instead of asking what's a book that you would give to somebody you had a crush on or whatever, but maybe a little different version of that is there a book that you would share with somebody that their opinion of it really determined for you whether you really had a lot in common with that person or not. You know, I think it's always kind of a risk to recommend books to people. But when there is somebody else that loves a book that you love, there's a connection there. I mean, I think as a friend or whatever. And so like for me, it's Pride and Prejudice. If somebody doesn't like Pride and Prejudice, okay, forget it. We're not going to ever really be close, you know, because I think it's such a wonderful novel. And everybody probably has other books like that they don't, and it's not you're going to be really judgy about it, but it is an indicator of whether you're on the same wavelength.
Okay, Donna, that is such an interesting point and a great thing that brings it all back to the first ever Books and Bars book. Because this reminds me of what Nick Hornby writes about in High Fidelity. And he says, you know, the character needs to grow from, and I don't want to discredit your statement, but I'm going to say, I think that's a great question to ask and to talk about. What's the book that, you know, well, if I loan it to them or if I bring it up to them and they didn't get it or they don't like it, you know, well, we're never gonna, I love that. But I'm going to also throw this out there, take it to this other level. When I was younger, I would have been that guy. That's who I would have judged people more by what they like as opposed to by what they are like, by what, you know, what's inside them. So I'm to the point now where I have the things I love and I love to share them with people. If they don't love them, I actually don't care that much. I'm okay with it because there's, you know what I mean? Like I can still be close to you and be friends with you, even if we completely disagree on this particular book that means so much to me. But 10 so years ago, I might've been more like, oh, you don't like that you don't get it. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to be that close because that's like my favorite and you don't get it. Well, you know what? Maybe I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's okay. I think it's okay to have different perspectives like that and to disagree about that, which is why it works out great for book club and stuff like that. I don't take it personally if I like one of these books and you guys don't. So, but that's great. So anyone, do you have something like that? Do you have a book like that? Or are you also maybe past that and okay with it? So like Donna, I like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Do you know we did that for Books and Bars? Did you ever, if as a big P&P fan, you should check out PP and Z. You know, that's why. Let's see. Mimi's hand is up. Mimi, may I unmute you? How are you?
Here's an
Yeah.
old story. Back in the 80s, I moved states and moved jobs, and I was brand new in a brand new place, and I bought multiple copies of Confederacy of Dunces and just gave it to people as a gift that I thought I might like to have as a friend. And we became just sort of like a little clique, a little cultish group of people that read books together and went to Chicago to plays together and did things together. And it kind of stemmed from that book. We were all Miss Trixie. We all had the characters that we wanted to be or related to. And that borderline between genius and madness was just such a fun theme. And if you recall that book, there's just not a more fun book to discuss on the planet. And so when you said that, yes, that was the book that I introduced myself to people with. So either they shied away from me or we became really longtime friends.
Yeah, I used to, when I would go to someone's place, and now of course it's different, right? Because so much of our stuff, so much of our media collections, our books, our music, movies, we might just have digitally and not maybe displayed on a shelf. But you know, back, like you say, earlier times, you would go to someone's place and you could see they would have maybe prominently on display, here are the CDs that I own, or here are the books that I own, or here, you know, whatever. And not that we don't still have bookshelves, but I would take a look and you would initially start to maybe judge the person. You start to like them more if you like what was on the shelf, or question some of these choices, you know. Again, I'm saying that this is something that that I have tried to move past, and luckily I don't see people's collections right off, you know, anymore, and I don't have to judge that. But I actually take it now as, if you have something on your shelf that I don't get, or I don't like, or I don't know what that is, it's it's on me that, oh, if you like that, maybe I should give it another chance, or I should, look at it another way or something. Or we can disagree and it's fine and we can still be friends. But I love that idea of having something that you bought a bunch of copies of and you handed it out to people and it became like a calling card. If anyone else has stuff like that, feel free to chime in. I see Kara, blushing Kara has her hand back up. I don't know if she's blushing. I mean, but Pete put her on such a pedestal, gave her so much praise. Not that she doesn't deserve it, but I mean, her head's going to be so big in the screen. It's barely, is it going to fit? Here we go, Kara, talk to us.
I love being complimented, so thank you. No, Jeff, I'm with you where I think like if people dislike something that I love, I'm cool with it. And I try not to be too judgmental with media, but I say that and I am hugely judgmental. And the thing about it, it's not that I want people to love the things I love. It's that sometimes people love particular things and that's what I like judge them for. So and a lot of this is like particular to like dudes that are like my age and stuff, but like sometimes I meet men that like just really, really, really love like The Wolf of Wall Street or Fight Club. And I'm like, that's an immediate like red flag. And I'm like, okay, this is a person who like can't be trusted, bad taste. And maybe they can justify liking it to me, but I think it's so funny. So it's like, someone could dislike, like I love Pride and Prejudice, but I have people that I'm very close with who don't like Pride and Prejudice, and we discuss it. They're more Bronte sister fans, and we have debates. But if someone like loves something that I hate, I'm like, I'm like side-eyeing them a little bit. Since like Pete was talking me up, and Jeff, maybe this is just inappropriate and so rude, but I actually and with my organization, we're starting a community book club. And we already read so much for this, so I can't, blame anyone who doesn't want to make it, but ours are focused on nonfiction and issues and things that are facing our St. Paul community. So we're going to talk about like food insecurity and housing, racial justice, and things like that. So if anyone is interested, I'm choosing all of the books and kind of hosting some of them and maybe finding guest hosts for others. So
Yeah, well,
nonfiction books, it's a separate kind of niche interest.
Right. Just to address the comments in the chat, men and women can be friends outside of Mike Pence, and I'd be delighted to have lunch with Kara, and my wife here would probably would want to join us, but if she didn't, it wouldn't be a problem. But yes, could you please put something in the chat? And Kara, I would be very interested in that. Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to share. There's plenty of room to go around, and if ideally you're not on the same nights as us and competing, but it doesn't sound like you would be.
we can work.
Yeah, it's going to be a different thing, and
cool.
It's I don't know. We don't read as much nonfiction in this group, so it's new for me too. I have to read a lot more nonfiction now that I'm picking these books.
Share anything that you have to get people involved. So that's great.
Sure.
Awesome. What else haven't we touched on? I lost the thread for just a second. Did I have another? No other hands right now. Anyone else on
Zara on the spectrum? What might be interesting, because I've known people like there's we'll call his name Craig, for Lisa and Andrew, but it's a made up name. But I do know people that could be on the spectrum, and it affects their behavior. And I think it's an interesting way of not judging people, because and then I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say about that.
Okay, Gretchen's got her hand up. Gretchen, may I unmute you?
Sure, I'm unmuted. I did it myself. So first of all, I just want to say that it is entirely possible to love the Bronte sisters and Jane Austen equally. it's like I have two children who are completely different, and I love them both the same way as I love the Brontes and I love Jane Austen. And Pete, I really felt when I was reading this that I thought Zara was probably somewhere on the spectrum as well. Just her reaction seemed so similar to the people that I deal with all the time who are somewhere on that spectrum, whether they're, higher functioning or not, but just her kind of inability to connect seemed really so much so that way. And I think it's really interesting to read, to try to have authors who try to get inside the mind of that that behavior. And maybe sometimes it's just extreme introversion. And then maybe that's what seems weird to those of us who are not, but it could be that I felt that way too reading it.
Thanks, Gretchen. Anyone else? We are getting close to our cutoff here. I want to make sure that you all know, I put in the chat, March 10th, we're back for The Chain. And Pete's favorite book of the year. Come
No,
here.
please, Purge read it. Purge read it for me.
Purge read it. It's thoroughly entertaining. But you know what it reminds me of, though, is every once in a while, there's a book that a lot of people are talking about that maybe gets like initial raves, really big raves, and sells really well. And then when the dust kind of settles, people are like, oh, well, that was actually, it was fun while I was reading it, but I don't know, or that maybe wasn't as good as I thought. But sometimes when I miss those, when I miss one of those stories, I feel like I missed on the zeitgeist. I missed the book that everyone was talking about. And I feel like The Chain was that maybe a few months ago. It might be again when they make the movie. But the other book I'm thinking of from a couple years ago, The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Did anyone read this? It's going to be a movie with Gary Oldman this year. I'm throwing this out there as a possibility. It might be trash. It might be thoroughly entertaining trash, but Gillian Flynn of Gone Girl and other book fame absolutely raves about this one. And I look on Goodreads. Some of you liked it. It's got around like 4.395, something like that. I don't know. It might be a fun one to throw out there, especially if we're doing 2 a month in the summer. If we are still, we'll see. But if anyone could tell me that they read Woman in the Window and we shouldn't read it and it's absolute trash, let me know. But if you read it and it's fun and it's thrilling, it looks like it's like Rear Window kind of. It's kind of like The Girl on the Train kind of story. Another one of our January romp kind of ones. So I'm just throwing that one out there. I just put that in the list. So if you go to our bookshop link, which I'll share again, we have the list of books that we're definitely doing, and then the list of books that we're considering for the rest of 2021. And we also have like favorites from the last 17 years as another list. So check it out on our bookshop. Let me find that link for you and share that again. If you buy them through there, Books and Bars does get some support, which is nice. And you can also allocate support to other local bookstores around here. Has anyone been back to any? Have you guys gone in store anywhere? Or are you still just getting stuff like online or from pickup windows or anything? Anyone have any bookstore return to bookstore stories that they can share? Let's see. Kara said she went into Subtext to pick up
Gretchen
a book.
does.
Yep,
Gretchen?
I was just in Grand Marais last weekend, and I went into Drury Lane Books. So for those of you who have been or haven't been, you should totally go. It's the most adorable little bookstore right on the lake. And they had it set up just great. One door to come in, one door to go out, a limited number of people in there. And it was just so nice to be inside a bookstore and look at the things on the shelves. And it was just wonderful. So I highly recommend
fantastic.
You feel safe doing that to do it.
I know that store. I've been there. It is so idyllic, and it's, right there on the water, and it looks just like a little cabin kind of house. It's so nice. Yeah. It's like a perfect, it could just be like the ultimate children's bookstore too. I mean, just everything about it. Really cool spot. Let's see, I've gone to Majors and Quinn in their back alley. It sounds like a deal was going down, but they got a great setup where you can bring books to them in their back alley, and then they'll evaluate them and send you a check or give you store credit, which is nice. So I'll come like with my minivan and the back opens, and I look around and I bring out like boxes of books that I put on like a cart, and they roll them away, and then they call me and they're like, hey, we can give you this much for those books. It's great. So otherwise, I've been to Half Price Books, also in St. Paul, my favorite location, across from the Highland Library. I like that one. And, mask up and stand far enough away from people, short amounts of time. It's okay. But I really have been, I've been very careful. So
is there any word on our favorite Minneapolis location?
Moon Palace?
Are they going to reopen? Do you know?
I don't know when. I don't know. I don't really know. They're still doing like the drive-up window thing at Moon Palace. Does anyone else have any personal experience with Moon Palace recently? I haven't.
I've ordered a few things from there, but I haven't been down that direction. But I have definitely ordered, and they're still really great about online orders. You get them very quickly, and they ship them with whatever their cheapy book shipping thing is. So I've been trying to spread the love with my online ordering.
That's great. Yeah, I like to spread it out a little bit between the stores too. So really great to hear. Well, people, let's stay safe. Let's meet again on Zoom March 10th for the chain, and then we'll be in touch about hopefully this summer. Who knows? Maybe we can meet in person too. And like I said, I think what I'll do is, even when we return to in person, I think there'll still be a Zoom version. Maybe the Zoom version will be the same book, on a different day, so that people that can't be with us in person can still have a discussion. But for now, I have 2 times a month scheduled, at least through April. And we're scheduled through Cinco de Mayo with Mexican Gothic is our May 5th book. And nothing's official after that. So check out our bookshop list and send me a note about what you guys want to read. Send me more ideas too, or tell me ones are good or bad, all of that great stuff. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a good night.
Thanks.